Hello, everyone. My name is Lindsay Brown from the Beyond Clean team, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for the fourth of an 11-part collaborative webinar series between Beyond Clean and Censis Technologies. The Censis team embraces the team experience, and they do so by understanding that providing for the sterile processing community happens through nurturing the individuals like yourselves. This is exactly why they've launched the Censis Continuing Education Series, True Grit, True You. If you haven't joined us for a Beyond Clean Censis virtual event yet, I would like to call your attention to a couple of features. On the screen, you will find a list of resources that the speaker for today's webinar has compiled for you. These resources will allow you to take your self-reflection as a current and future leader even further. There's a question and answer tool on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. The Q&A function, you can submit questions for the speaker throughout the presentation, and those questions will be addressed at the end during the live Q&A. However, we added a really fun new feature for this webinar called the group chat. So as you'll see on the bottom, along the icons, there's a blue icon with little thought bubbles. If you click on that, it will bring up a group chat, and this will allow you to communicate with both the speaker and the other attendees of this event throughout the session. So that group chat function will be very important coming up a little bit later. Dealing with conflict in the workplace can be a challenge. This can be exacerbated during times of crisis, such as a worldwide pandemic, for example. And in this session, Derek is going to give leaders some strategies and solutions on how to navigate through conflict and crisis, as well as see conflict and crisis from a different perspective. And so without further ado, I'm so excited to now turn it over to your presenter for the day, Derek Murray.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Greetings, everyone. I was going to say good morning or good afternoon, but you could be in a different time zone than where I am. It's 12 noon where I am, the center of the United States. So I'll just say greetings to everyone and welcome. I am Derek Murray. I am Senior Client Portfolio Manager for Censis Technologies, and just very happy to be here today and to give you some extra tools to put in your belt today for conflict management. One thing that I'd like to do is just start off with, I'm a very musical person, so I'm going to start off with just a small little snippet of music that you might recognize, because this is something that everyone always looks for, especially as leaders. All we want is, you know, just a little respect. So that's all we're asking for. Isn't that kind of simple? What you want, I've got it. What you need, I think I've got it. All I'm asking is for a little respect when I come to work. Yes, just a little respect, just a little bit. No matter where you are, you might be in the school, the SPD, doesn't matter who. All we want from you is some respect, just a little bit, little respect, yes. So isn't that true? That's kind of all that, you know, we as leaders want. But I'm going to submit something to you a little bit different today, and that is that maybe that respect and what we're needing starts with us. So let's get into it a little bit here. I have a little bit about myself. I like to tell the kind of a little bit of story and background that people like to hear about me. Born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I've been married for 36 years to my beautiful wife, 2 daughters and 1 grandson, as you can see their picture there. I spent 25 years in the education field before I came into the healthcare industry as an educator and trainer. I lived in North Pole, Alaska for 11 years before moving here to Missouri. I have a bachelor's in psychology, a master's in leadership. I'm an Air Force veteran, a certified life coach, an ordained licensed minister. And as I always say, I'm just plain old happy to be here one more day. So in light of that, after getting to know me a little bit, this is what you can expect. and that is to define the nature of conflict, where conflict really arises, where it comes from, outline the culture of conflict resolution. What kind of culture do we want to create in our workplaces as far as resolution is concerned? And then illustrate the action equation. Do plus know equals feel. And we'll get more into that. And then show what emotional intelligence looks like in the workplace, in leadership. And so those are all of the things that we're going to look at today. So first of all, you know, we've got a new normal. As you see these photos here, you know, of course I'm here, we're working from home, but whenever I go out, I'm masked up and ready to roll. That's our new normal. And we've seen so many things transpire over the last few months, not only just with COVID-19, but also with social unrest. People are unsure of the future, different things. So those things can really exacerbate really conflict. People that maybe you've been dealing with for a long time, maybe there's some conflict, and now we've got these new things that are added onto it. And it can really create a soup that sometimes we as leaders just wish we could just click our heels 3 times together like Dorothy and just disappear. So, but I'd like to change that because we're going to engage conflict in a new way. So in saying that, in the group chat, I would like you to submit one word in the group chat that comes to mind when you hear the word conflict. So go ahead in your group chat there and you can submit your one word. I see discomfort, discussion, trouble, run. I love that word. Stress, avoid, scary, confrontation. That's a good one. We're going to talk about that more. Anxious, painful, negative, all of those things. So as you're putting your words in there, drama, that's a real one. You know, as we say, save the drama for your mama. I don't want to deal with that. But those are all things: tension, avoid, disagreements. I like that one too. Argumentative, ego. Egos can be involved, yes. Aggravation, nervous and defensive. Melissa G., you're getting ahead of me a little bit with opportunity, but do you see any running themes there? It looks like most of those, when we say the word conflict, they have a negative connotation. So in that, let's look and see exactly what conflict is. So it is an emotional state between two persons in a relationship where, as we saw one of the words, disagreement, misunderstanding about needs, drives, wishes, and/or demands has occurred. So we know that, first of all, we're going to have to deal with emotions. There's where we can put that ugh. Emotions are something that we can't run away from when it comes to our workplace. It's just a fact. Here's another definition, and expressed. So I like that, and expressed. So there's expression involved in conflict. Sometimes it can get very expressive. It's between at least two independent parties who perceive. So we have perception and we have emotions. Two things that we'll talk a little bit more about. When the independent parties perceive incompatible goals, scarce resources, and interference from others in achieving those goals. So it's someone that's trying to, it looks like, get somewhere because they're trying to achieve goals, they're trying to move forward, but there's that struggle because of perception of what things look like to the person that we're leading. Then there's problems that occur when the differences between two or more people necessitate a change. So we've got emotions, perceptions, and change. Wow, three biggies there. We know change can be very, very hard for people to change when we're going through change initiatives within an organization. So that change, it necessitates a change in at least one person, at least one, in order for the relationship to continue to grow and develop. And most of the time, as leaders, we want that change to be in that person that we have the stewardship of leading. We want to see that change in them. But I'd like to submit to you something a little bit different. Maybe there's some things that we can change as leaders that will help us to engage those that we're leading in a way that, number one, builds them up and does not tear them down, and it treats them with dignity and respect. And we build a platform and a road for them as we walk together in relationship in order to reach the goals that we're both trying to get to. So let's look at something here, because this is part of the change that I think is necessary. So this is a real awesome statement that I used a lot when I was teaching, because we realized that a lot of confrontations in the world that I was in then in special education dealt with a lot of how we saw our students and we saw ourselves. And so I wanted to make sure that people understood we have the power to do certain things, to make certain things happen as leaders. So I'm going to read this. I've come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element in my office, in the SPD, in my home, wherever that is. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make, and if you put that person's name in there to yourself, that maybe gives you a little bit more angst than others, put their name in there. I have tremendous power to make this person's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt, or heal. In all situations, it is my response. It's Derek's response as a leader that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, and whether or not a person is humanized or dehumanized. One thing that we want to do is to de-escalate and to humanize people. We want to de-escalate things so that incidents of conflict don't become incidents. They just stay as between each other so that things don't escalate. And then we want to make sure that we humanize people in that process. So that's a very important statement. This was actually from Dr. Chaim Gano, who is a Holocaust survivor. It's pretty powerful. So one of the things is that in relationships and conflict's inevitable. One of my mentors in life right now, and has been for many years, he doesn't know that he's my mentor, but I've read several of his books and I just consider him my mentor. But his name is Bishop T.D. Jakes. And one of the most powerful things that I heard him say was, when we signed up to be leaders, guess what? We signed up for conflict. Eek. Not really what I wanted to hear, but it's true. I signed up for conflict when I signed up to be a leader. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. But it's a way, we want to approach it in a way that is constructive so that we're building relationships. We're building people up. We're maintaining their dignity, their respect. We want to build open communication with them so that we have proactive interactions instead of always reacting to something that is going on with that person. And then we want to give open and honest feedback, because then not in a way that tears them down, but that it builds them up. And then we can get that trust and acceptance that we're looking for, because that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to build trust in our workplaces with those that we work with on a daily basis. We want to salvage relationships, because guess what? Even though I have a conflict with you today, I have to work with you again tomorrow. So we want to be able to face conflict head on. It's not so scary as it seems. It can be hard, and it does take work. But as leaders, we're willing to put that work in. We're willing to do the work. We've got to be willing, because we want to see people self-actualize. We want to see them get to the place that they're trying to get to. And we are one of the, I guess you could say, pit stops along the way, because they won't always be with us all the time. We won't always be in the same position, and they won't either. But hopefully, when they encounter me in the relationship that I have with them now, my hope is that I can build in different tools into their lives and into my life that will be of mutual respect, so that we can both go and get to the place that we're trying to get to. When conflict arises, it's kind of important to look at the relationship that we have with the person that we're involved with. A lot of times, we may not have a really good relationship with that person. And so maybe there's some things that we have to build in order to get a better relationship, better working relationship. And then we want that relationship to be healthy. And sometimes we put off dealing with the people that we've termed difficult. And especially now with COVID-19 and all of the different things that are going on, there's different things now that have added to that conflict that we had before COVID-19. So now we're dealing with an exponential amount of other things on top of that. So sometimes it's our own conflict experience that makes us put off dealing with certain people at certain times. Sometimes it's easier just like, you know what, I don't want to deal with this now. I just don't. I don't have time. I need to move on. It's time to do something else. I'll get back to that later. But guess what? It's going to come back around, and we're going to have to at some point face it. So let's look at the conflict cycle. So in the conflict cycle, our attitudes and beliefs about conflict are there at the top. But actually, it starts off before that. It's how our last conflict experience will influence our attitudes and beliefs. And then when conflict occurs, and then our response, and then the consequence or the outcome of it, then it's reinforced. And guess what? We're back at the same place, because nothing's changed in that cycle. There's nothing that's been interrupted in that cycle. So how we left the last conflict, our attitudes and beliefs about conflict being and oh God, I have to do this again. That's how we're going to enter the next conflict. So today, I'm going to interrupt your cycle. Interrupt it and throw a wrench in it and put it to a grinding halt. So we're going to look at some things of how we can change our perceptions about conflict. As leaders, a lot of times we are time travelers in the sense that we speak to a person's past and their present in order to help build their future. So we have to look at that. Sometimes we have to deal with those things because of where that person is, and even where we are with our past issues of dealing with conflict. So we're all traveling together in time. And hopefully our interactions with those, once we throw this wrench in there and we change our attitudes and our beliefs about conflict, then we can begin to build a new cycle, a cycle that then when conflict occurs, and then our response is one of dignity and respect, and the outcome turns out to be different, and it's reinforced by our own empowerment of other people. And then when we get back to the next conflict, we'll be like, oh my gosh, yes, let's run the conflict, right? Yes, that's what we want to do. We don't want to shy away. We want to run to it. We want to make sure that people get the tools that they need, and so that they can move on. So that's what we're going to do today. So dealing with people we deem as difficult, it's always subjective. As I said, it's subject to our own conflict experience. So I want you to do this. We're going to do the group chat again. So think about a conflict experience. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes here. What was the outcome? And did the outcome influence your view of conflict? And it can be real short answers. So go to the group chat. See, I wish I should have played some Jeopardy music, you know. Dun, 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 dun. All right, so I see some answers here. It's good. It was understanding. It was tiring. It can be tiring. Other person wouldn't engage in conversation. Ended up with a frustrated team. Yeah. Disagreement about duties. It was exhausting. Draining. Yes. Can be all of those things. Agree to disagree. I like that one. We're going to get more into that too. Backlash later, eeks. So different things that everyone has experienced with a conflict experience and what the outcome was. And, you know, I hope that as we go further, that your outcome will change as you encounter conflict after today. That's my hope for you. So we're going to do something here. Let me go back. So I'm going to show you a picture. You saw just a brief moment of it. And I'm going to show it to you for about 10 seconds. Probably less than that, probably about 7 seconds. I want you to look at it, and then I'm going to ask you some questions. All right, so after looking at that picture, answer these questions, and you can do this in the group chat again. Why is this group of people meeting? Is there something that they want? And who is the leader of the group? We're going to deal with perceptions. So go ahead in the live chat. Why is this group of people meeting? Is there something they want? And then who is the leader of this group? Okay, training, doing training. Review of a document. Looks like a discussion. An error person is standing there. person standing is the leader. The person standing, they have opinions, there's clarity, there's person standing, they're sharing ideas. The lady standing up is the group leader. They're finding a solution. So lots of different things. I'll give you another 30 seconds. Discussion, group opinion input from all. The leader is the one standing. They were enjoying coffee. Hey, I like that one. Yes. There's an issue with something. So there's lots of different perceptions. So let's think about perceptions in conflict. So remember, one of our definitions is an express struggle between at least two independent parties who perceive incompatible goals, resources. I do that exercise, and I've done it before, just to let you know, there's no right or wrong answer. It's about people's perception about how they see certain things, how they perceive certain things. They might feel, a lot of people said she's the leader, but who knows? Maybe the guy in the lumberjack shirt, maybe he's the leader, and he's looking, he's seeing what's going on. It could be this young lady here in front of the computer, as someone said. It could be this guy here in the blue shirt. Any one of them could be the leader. They could be discussing, hey, that could be a lunch menu in their hand. What are we going to do for lunch today? And everybody's trying to decide. I love the one that they were enjoying coffee with the coffee cups. That's a good one. I like that. But as you can see, when we're dealing with conflict, there can be lots of different perceptions of something that's going on. So that involves us to do perception checking. We have to kind of stand in someone else's shoes and kind of see, hey, maybe they're seeing something that I'm not seeing. And so that's creating some kind of conflict and causing us to be at a stalemate. So it's very, very important that we understand perceptions in conflict. So how do you view conflict? Do you do the fight, flight, or freeze? So is conflict something that needs to be avoided? Run, as someone put, not calling you out, but that's just honest. Run. I've done that before. Run from conflict. Is conflict something that needs to be controlled? We want to sometimes just control it. And then if we can take the authoritarian approach, we can just squash it and everybody can move on. But sometimes it's going to resurface again, probably in attitudes and behavior. So we got to think about that too. It's not maybe something we really want to control. Or can conflict lead to valuable collaboration, healthy workplace relationships, and effective organizational change? Let's pause and think of that. So we don't want to fight. We don't want to freeze and be immobilized and just totally frozen. We don't want to run from it. We want to face it head on. And we want to be able to make sure that people understand where we're coming from and that we understand where they're coming from as well. Especially us as leaders, understanding their perception is very important. Understanding emotions and conflict, again, the archaic models, leadership models of the past said, what do I need to deal with anybody's emotions for? Check your emotions at the door, come in, do your work, and then when you leave, you can pick them up and you can cry, boo-hoo, do whatever you need to there when you get home. Here, we're just going to work. Well, that's kind of, for the person that we're leading, it's kind of like, and I have a little meme here, Groundhog Day. I told you I come, I go to work, I'm here, and every time I get to the same place, it's February 2nd all over again. And then I rinse and repeat. That's how that approach ends up being. And that's kind of robotic and lifeless. So we don't want people, they're not robots. Everyone, all of us have feelings. We have different wishes and desires, things that we want to see. And it would be very easy for people to just drop off their emotions at the door. We all know that in this new era that we're in with COVID-19, things have changed. We've seen emotions. We've seen emotions galore. We've seen emotions within our family members, within our significant others. My wife and I have had to make adjustments. I'm working from home all the time. She's essential and actually has papers that she takes with her as a banker. She's been going to work every day. So it's caused us all to have to understand where we are with everything as we're seeing social unrest. You know, our children, we're having to talk to them and reassure them, our grandchildren, and just let them know that we're here, but we're dealing with emotions. It's something that we cannot get away from. So it's important that we have the tools necessary that can help us move through things, especially when we add conflict to it. So we'll look at that a little bit more as we're going. Emotions and conflict, they're one and the same. They're like peanut butter and jelly, peas and carrots. They're not going away. They're together, they're twins. So emotions and conflict, they can't be separated. And you'll see, and we understand, and we know, emotions drive behavior. They do. One of the things that I saw when I was teaching was that, you know, I would engage someone, a student, and I would get the same response every day if I said, good morning. Hey, how you doing today, Jimmy? Oh, fine, Mr. Murray, how are you? Good. We did that every day. Then one day I say, hey, good morning, Jimmy. And Jimmy just, you know, cusses me out, upside one down the other. And then I'm like, okay, this is the same thing I've said to him every day. What's going on? But there's something else that I knew was probably driving his behavior, something outside of what our everyday greeting was. So it was up to me to be a perception checker and find out, okay, let me find out what's going on. One of the most important things is that true conflict management is when we choose our behavior during a conflict, we are responding instead of reacting, which is we're regulating our own emotions rather than, like I said, reacting. So it's very important that I did not, and it took time for me to learn this, you know, immediately I'm taking Jimmy to the office, boom. No, Jimmy, come here. Let me talk to you. Buddy, what's going on? My parents had a fight this morning and it really upset me. Okay, so now I've gotten to the place of what's driving his behavior. So sometimes we need to just pull aside and find out, not take things personally. That's a real big thing. In conflict, we can't, as leaders, take things in and take it personally. We have to look at what is it that's driving this conflict, this behavior in the conflict. So what becomes important is emotional intelligence. Emotionally intelligent leaders understand their own emotions. That means I have to be empathetic. I have to understand my own emotions so that then I can understand the emotions of others. I can then manage my own emotions, and then I can actively listen to what's going on with them at that time. It's a choice of looking beyond their faults. I had to look beyond Jimmy's fault and see what the real need was so that then I can understand why we're in the middle of this conflict. It is something that takes time. It is something that takes practice. It is learned behavior. You just have to learn to do it. But we can as leaders. I have faith in you that you'll be able to do this, that as you understand your own emotions in conflict, that then you'll be able than to calm yourself first and be able to interact with someone instead of react to someone. So what's the result? Hey, when we are more emotionally intelligent leaders, guess what happens? Self-regulation. Hey, guess what? They trust us a little bit more. They'll come to us because they know that we have their best interest at heart. We really do. And then our own self-awareness means increased loyalty. You will see that people will be a lot more loyal because they know that you're more self-aware as a leader and that you're not just going to brush them off. You're going to actually invite them and then listen to them and listen intently and actively listen to what's going on with them at that point. And then this is what's really amazing. Their motivation is increased because once people understand, hey, you're going to listen, you're going to really understand my point of view. And one of the things that I used to teach teachers is this: hey, it doesn't matter. Sometimes the request or whatever it is can seem really loony, but you have to validate it because that's what they're feeling at that moment. So when we know that people are going to validate their feelings and not just brush them off, guess what? They will trust you more, they'll be more loyal, and guess what? They will increase in their performance. So empathy really means less conflict. Yes. So we want to be empathetic leaders. We want to see people and see from their perspective through their eyes. Walk not a mile, maybe just, about 10 steps in their shoes. Walk a little bit in their shoes and understand where they're coming from, what their frustrations are. We can do that. So here's where the action equation. So when you do, of course, a leader communicates what it is, the task, or what it is, something that they need them to do. Then knowing is delivering the information in a memorable way. Just like the song that I played, I used music a lot. And so the song that I played, you're going to remember that. Respect, R-E-S-P-C-T. I just need a little more respect, but there's some things I need to do to get a little more respect. So you do things, you deliver information in a memorable way that people remember so that they go, yeah, I remember. Okay. And guess what that produces? Feeling. The catalyst that moves them into action, makes them self-actualize. It creates emotional connections between employees and their work. Let me tell you a story about me. So after coming out of 25 years of special education as a trainer and as instructor, I got this job, here I am at Censis, never heard anything about the sterile processing department, didn't even know what it was. I've never had surgery before. My beautiful wife has. I've had to go and walk with her through surgery, all of that, being in the hospital, everything, parents, different things like that. But when I came into this wonderful world, I am just like now the biggest champion for sterile processing because I understand that being down in a lot of times the basement of a hospital and you're working and you're putting together trays for a surgery and making sure that everything is sterile and it gets up to the OR on time and it's saving lives. When I made that emotional connection the first time I went into a hospital as a trainer, training our software, I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is something. And so as a trainer, before I got the position I had some wonderful people around me, our CEO and our CEO now, Randy Smith, all of these people that make this emotional connection to the work that we do. That is so vitally important that people understand why they do what they do. And so the action equation of do, know, feel, man, now I feel the excitement whenever I go into the hospital. I'm like, yes, these are my people. They're awesome. It's sometimes a thankless job, But I believe that's changing because people like me, now my father-in-law, guess what? Or excuse me, my stepdad, he sends me articles about patient infections that are happening or different things that he sees in the healthcare industry. I've created a really good monster. But now I've got other people that are aware of those things, of the sterile processing and what all is entailed, that it's not just a magical fairy that delivers instruments to the operating room. No, it's real people that are doing a real job, that are getting things there on time. So that is the result of the action equation in my own life. So hopefully you'll be able to translate that to those that you have the stewardship of leading, that you will create those emotional connections between work so that then people will be like, yes, I'm doing this because I know my work has meaning. It has great meaning. I'm saving lives. So action equation, remember that one. That's an important one. So we're going to do another poll. So let's go ahead and get your group chat ready. So what motivates you in your current position? What motivates you? So we'll take a little time, do a little group chat. What motivates you in your current position? What is your motivator? Feeling part of the team, caring for others, making my team, job well done. Money, opportunities, being there for my staff, goals, aspiring, helping others, my coworkers, self-respect, mentoring, great patient responses. Ooh, yeah. Making a difference, seeing the improvements that my team is making, goals that are met, staff cooperation. Wow. Appreciation. That's a big one. Standing up for the team. Working with family. Yes. Patient safety. Yes. Coaching. Feeling valued. Ooh, that's a good one. So, believe it or not, meaningful work has a greater staying power than a paycheck. It really does. Of course, we like to get paid, but when you enjoy what you're doing, you will go to the ends of the earth, and pay won't mean anything. It'll just be because you found your passion, and you found something that brings you meaning, and you found something that brings value to your everyday life. So hopefully we can translate those same things to those that we work with, that we have the stewardship of leading. That's one thing that I do every day, and I say this humbly, is that I thank my team. And I know some of them are probably looking at, but I have to thank them all the time, because I know the value of what that means. I know the value of not hearing that and how disvalued I felt after not hearing that. So I want to make sure that I let them know that the work that they are doing is awesome, that they are the greatest team. They're just the greatest, all of them. They are the greatest. And I could not do what I do without them. So, you know, leadership takes place at different levels. Sometimes we always look for leadership to start at the front. You know, leadership starts a lot of times either in the middle or in the back. So we have to understand that we're developing people, hopefully, that we've got succession planning in our minds, that we're developing people so that they can move into my position. And because I won't always be here, but I want to make sure that I develop them, that I make sure that I make those connections with emotions and what they're doing, that I make sure that they feel valued and that I appreciate every single waking moment, that they are on the job. So we want to create those meaningful relationships between work and what we and people and what they do, so that they feel empowered. So here's another one that can a lot of times be a big part of change or a conflict, and that's change. It can be a big source of conflict. You know, the saying, constant change is here to stay. That's all there is to it. Everything is going to change. We have seen change in exponential ways since March. Everything's changed. Our whole world, how we travel, how we shop, how we just do basic daily tasks. Everything has changed. So we have to make sure that we build in certain things for folks so that conflict is lessened during a change initiative and when change is happening rapidly. So in most situations, we can't control the changes coming our way. We can't. We get directives, and then we have to then communicate those directives to others, and things have to, boom, we have to move it. So what we can control, though, is how we respond to the change. We can role model how we need to respond during a change initiative. So what do you need? Poll time, group chat. So let's see what you need in order to reduce conflict during a change initiative. What is it that you need as a leader? So let's take about a minute for you to respond there. Time, transparency, and trust. An open mind. Oh, yeah. Remain present and positive. Ooh, the 2 P's. P squared, present and positive. I like that. Support, information. Information, yes. Leadership needs to have my back all right now. I like that. Support, empathy and understanding. Enough staff. Ooh, let's pause and think about that one. Support from our leaders, yes. Communication, support. The willingness, all right, let's halt the train there. The willingness to change. Sometimes we just need to be willing, you know? Just the willingness to change can sometimes be the biggest thing. Just knowing that, hey, guess what? And we as leaders can build a culture of change so that then conflict is lessened. So very good answers. Oh, I appreciate y'all. You guys are just like rocking it. I love it. So, you know, a lot of times we do experience resistance to change. Change to be effective and successful at every level. So change that happens, whether it's at the back, in the middle, in the front, wherever it is, must happen with those who will be most affected by the change. So there are some that sometimes are more affected by change than others. So we have to be aware of that as leaders and make sure that we build things in, enough communication, as much as we can allow, because sometimes, like I said, change happens fast. But if we can get to them and say, hey, guess what? This is going to change. Get ready. Get your mind, get your heart, get everything ready, because we're moving and we're not stopping. So is change happening to followers or through followers? We want change to happen through people. We want to have a through way so that they can process it, even if it's for a short amount of time, because not always is it going to be a long amount of time, but just for a short amount of time. Let it go through them so that they can digest, regurgitate, you know, get it all. Then how is it going to affect me in my position? People need to see the reason behind the change. You know how back in the day, Dad, why do I have to do this? Because I said so. Well, that doesn't always work when we're seeing others in our jobs. So a lot of times people need to know the reason behind the change, because then that helps them to understand how it's going to affect them or not affect them. But just so that they have a reason and they see and they can connect the dots as to how they will either benefit or put an input into the change, that they can contribute to the change. So it's important that people need to see certain things. And then what is the most important thing? What do I have to give up in this? Usually there's something I have to give up. So what's it going to be? And sometimes we can just be upfront and right up front and say, yes, this is going to change. You'll have to give this up. Yep, you'll have to give up some time. Yep, you'll have to give up this. So at least when we have change happening, we can then prepare people for the change initiative by just being honest and making sure that the change is going through them and not just happening to them. When employees are engaged in the change process, that's what we want. They feel like their perspective, where they are, from their viewpoint, where they're seeing things changing, they're being listened to, their perspective is being listened to, and it's being considered as well, because a lot of times people can see things that sometimes we as leaders can't see. So it's important to get a consensus sometimes when we're able to, because not always, but if we're able to get some kind of consensus on a change and we listen to their perspective and they feel like, oh, wow, they're really considering what I'm saying, then guess what? Barriers drop. And then resistance is it can be reduced to nothing. And guess what? Then people trust us more. So here's that word again, trust. That's what we're trying to build. We're trying to build something here that we can walk together down this road and lessen conflict as much as possible. And then guess what? That's empowerment. We've then empowered people to go for it because now we're listening to them. We're hearing where they're coming from. We're not just brushing them off and saying, oh, here comes Timmy again. Oh, he's got something else he wants to say about this change. No, we embrace it. We say, hey, Tim, come on over. Let's talk. Yeah, what ideas do you have? You know what? I will shoot those up the chain and we'll see what happens. So that's empowerment. People feel empowered. They feel energized. That's what we want. So I'm going to propose something to you, and that is confronting versus carefronting. And I know it seems like almost like a Care Bearish type thing. No, get that out of your mind. It's really a good thing. So we'll talk about it a little bit. So confrontation does what? In confrontation, we avoid taking ownership of how we feel about someone or something that's going on. So we avoid that. We place the blame, you. That's what we do. And it happens when we're mad enough, angry enough, and disappointed enough. So that's what happens. We let things build up till we get explosive, boom, forget it, done. I'm not dealing with you anymore. Just do it and let's move on. So that doesn't really, really give good fuzzies for, working together more. It kind of, everyone goes to their corner and it polarizes everybody. So what can we do instead? So I'd like to just talk to you just briefly about carefronting. So carefronting means that we take ownership of our feelings. We treat people with dignity, with respect, and then our concern for relationships and goals are then together. They're unified. Because I care about you and our relationship, our working relationship, and I want to continue to see this relationship grow and develop over time, guess what? Can we talk about this issue? And sometimes we get to the point where we can agree to disagree, but we can still talk. So that's what's important about carefronting. Like I said earlier, polarizing things guess what? Tomorrow, I got to face you again. And it's not going to be so, wonderful, because I've polarized you, you've polarized me, we've gone to our corners. And now when we come back, guess what? That issue, that skunk is still on the table. We got to get that skunk off the table, because we need to talk. I need to respect your opinions, and I need to treat you with dignity and respect about your perspective. So that's what carefronting really is. It's about caring enough about the relationship to see it grow and develop over time. So let's look at this again. I've come to the frightening conclusion that I'm the decisive element in my world, my office. It's my personal approach that creates the climate, the weather. I am the controller of the remote for weather. The mood, the daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make this person's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture, an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or hurt or humor, hurt or heal in all these situations. Now I'm seeing it's my response that decides whether this crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, a person humanized or dehumanized. So let's look at this real quick. So what kind of weather are you creating? A nice, wonderful oasis of people coming to, or are you creating this kind? I think that ocean sound, kind of think yourself as being at an oasis. Or, am I creating that? Which would you rather create? So I can tell you what I'd rather create. A place for inclusion, for people to come. And now we have a new perspective, hopefully, of conflict. So what are some new words that now you can associate with conflict? Go ahead, get in the group chat real quick, and let me see what new words you can come up with now. Perspective. Sometimes both. Ooh, depending on the situation. But I would rather be the oasis. I'm with you on that one. Not stomach churning. I love that. That's it. Because yes, your stomach gets in knots. Oh God, I gotta confront. But let's carefront, because we know we've got to come back together. We got to see the person the next day. Yikes. Sometimes I can be both. I'm with you. I know, but we're working on it. And after today, we're going to work on it even more. See the bigger picture. Selfless. Listening. Yes. I need to carefront more. Optimism. Resolution. Yeah. Do you want a resolution? Whoop, whoop. Yes. Perspective is everything. It is. I'm glad you saw that. Perspective is everything. Empathy. Empathetic. Yes, Kim D. Opportunity. Yes. Yes. All of those things. So you have a new perspective about conflict. I hope you do. And I hope you'll put some of these things to use. I'm going to show you a quick video. It's just 5 minutes. I know we're just about out of time here, but it's really good.
I want to just start by asking everyone in the audience here a question. How many of you are completely comfortable with calling yourselves a leader? See, I've asked that question all the way across the country, and everywhere I ask it, no matter where, there's always a huge portion of the audience that won't put up their hand. And I've come to realize that we have made leadership into something bigger than us. We made it into something beyond us. We made it about changing the world. And we've taken this title of leader and we treat it as if it's something that one day we're going to deserve. But to give it to ourselves right now means a level of arrogance or cockiness that we're not comfortable with. And I worry sometimes that we spend so much time celebrating amazing things that hardly anybody can do that we've convinced ourselves that those are the only things we're celebrating. And we start to devalue the things that we can do every day. And we start to take moments where we truly are a leader, and we don't let ourselves take credit for it, and we don't let ourselves feel good about it. And I've been lucky enough over the last 10 years to work with some amazing people who have helped me redefine leadership in a way that I think has made me happier. And with my short time today, I just want to share with you the one story that is probably most responsible for that redefinition. I went to a school on a little school called Mount Allison University in Sackville, New Brunswick. And on my last day there, a girl came up to me and she said, "I remember the first time that I met you." And then she told me a story that happened 4 years earlier. She said, "On my day before I started university, I was in the hotel room with my mom and my dad, and I was so scared and so convinced that I couldn't do this, that I wasn't ready for university, that I just burst into tears. And my mom and my dad were amazing. They were like, 'Look, we know you're scared, but let's just go tomorrow. Let's go to the first day. And if at any point you feel as if you can't do this, that's fine. Just tell us. We will take you home. We love you no matter what.'" And she says, so I went the next day, and I was standing in line getting ready for registration, and I looked around, and I just knew I couldn't do it. I knew I wasn't ready. I knew I had to quit. And she says, I made that decision, and as soon as I made it, there was this incredible feeling of peace that came over me. And I turned to my mom and my dad to tell them that we needed to go home. And just at that moment, you came out of the Student Union building wearing the stupidest hat I have ever seen in my life. It was awesome. And you had a big sign promoting Shinorama, which is Students Fighting Cystic Fibrosis, a charity I've worked with for years. And you had a bucket full of lollipops. And you were walking along and you were handing the lollipops out to people in line and talking about Shinorama. And all of a sudden, you got to me and you just stopped and you stared. It was creepy. This girl right here knows exactly what I'm talking about. And then you looked at the guy next to me, and you smiled, and you reached in your bucket, you pulled out a lollipop, and you held it out to him. And you said, you need to give a lollipop to the beautiful woman standing next to you. And she said, I have never seen anyone get more embarrassed faster in my life. He turned beet red, and he wouldn't even look at me. He just kind of held the lollipop out like this. And I felt so bad for this dude that I took the lollipop. And as soon as I did, you got this incredibly severe look on your face, and you looked at my mom and my dad, and you said, look at that. Look at that. First day away from home, and already she's taking candy from a stranger. And she said everybody lost it. 20 feet in every direction, everyone started to howl. And I know this is cheesy, and I don't know why I'm telling you this. But in that moment when everyone was laughing, I knew that I shouldn't quit. I knew that I was where I was supposed to be, and I knew that I was home. And I haven't spoken to you once in the 4 years since that day, but I heard that you were leaving. And I had to come up and tell you that you've been an incredibly important person in my life, and I'm going to miss you. Good luck. And she walks away, and I'm flattened. And she gets about 6 feet away, she turns around and smiles and goes, you should probably know this too. I'm still dating that guy 4 years later. A year and a half after I moved to Toronto, I got an invitation to their wedding. Here's the kicker. I don't remember that. I have no recollection of that moment. And I've searched my memory banks because that is funny, and I should remember doing it. And I don't remember it. And that was such an eye-opening, transformative moment for me to think that maybe the biggest impact I'd ever had on anyone's life, a moment that had a woman walk up to a stranger 4 years later and say, you've been an incredibly important person in my life, was a moment that I didn't even remember. How many of you guys have a lollipop moment, a moment where someone said something or did something that you feel fundamentally made your life better? All right. How many of you have told that person they did it? See, why not? We celebrate birthdays where all you have to do is not die for 365 days. And yet we let people who have made our lives better walk around without knowing it. And every single one of you has been the catalyst for a lollipop moment. You have made someone's life better by something that you said or that you did. And if you think you haven't, think about all the hands that didn't go back up when I asked that question. You're just one of the people who hasn't been told. But it is so scary to think of ourselves as that powerful. It can be frightening to think that we can matter that much to other people. Because as long as we make leadership something bigger than us, as long as we keep leadership something beyond us, as long as we make it about changing the world, we give ourselves an excuse not to expect it every day from ourselves and from each other. Marianne Williamson said, our greatest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our greatest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light and not our darkness that frightens us. And my call to action today is that we need to get over that. We need to get over our fear of how extraordinarily powerful we can be in each other's lives. We need to get over it so we can move beyond it. And our little brothers and our little sisters, and one day our kids, or our kids right now, can watch us start to value the impact we can have on each other's lives more than money and power and titles and influence. We need to redefine leadership as being about lollipop moments. How many of them we create, how many of them we acknowledge, how many of them we pay forward, and how many of them we say thank you for. Because we've made leadership about changing the world, and there is no world. There's only 6 billion understandings of it. And if you change one person's understanding of it, one person's understanding of what they're capable of, one person's understanding of how much people care about them, one person's understanding of how powerful an agent for change they can be in this world, you change the whole thing. And if we can understand leadership like that, I think if we can redefine leadership like that, I think we can change everything. And it's a simple idea, but I don't think it's a small one. And I want to thank you all so much for letting me share it with you today.
All right. So hopefully, like I said, you now see conflict in a new light, that it's something that can be positive. It's an opportunity. It's something for gain, collaboration, and most importantly, for growth, not only for those that we're leading, but for ourselves, that we can grow through it. So remember, it is our response as leaders that will determine whether a conflict outcome will yield either positive or negative results. So thank you very much. I just feel honored that I was able to spend some time with you today, and hopefully you see conflict in a new light in the midst of everything that is going on with a worldwide pandemic. No matter where you are, I hope that you will take the time and the tools, and that you will now see that you can engage people in a way that builds them up and gives them the tools they need to self-actualize and to move forward. Thank you very much, everyone.
Derek, thank you so much for providing such incredible information and for providing both current and future leaders with really important tools that they can implement and self-reflection opportunities that they can take advantage of. That was incredible. I would like to encourage everyone to utilize, thank you for first of all, for utilizing the group chat function during this presentation. I'm going to ask that you now, if you have specific questions for Derek, that you enter them in the Q&A engagement tool on your lower left-hand side of your screen. As we prepare for the live Q&A, I'd like to share some very exciting news from the Censis team. Based on the feedback that they've received from previous presentations, the Censis team has been working hard to create a community space to hold more discussions once this True Grit webinar series is complete. So Censis just released, just this week, the Censis True Grit community app. It's free and it's available to download on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. So be sure to check out that new Censis True Grit app. Because it provides more opportunity for you to learn, to share, and to connect over topics and subjects that are important. So check that out today. And with that, Derek, we do have a couple of questions that have come through. So I will get right into those. All right, the first of which actually came through toward the beginning of the presentation. It says, I love Ken Blanchard's stuff. One of the first books I read as a new manager was 1 Minute Manager. It was a great introduction to the purpose and role of a leader. Can you just explain a little bit more about the resources that you provided for the attendees of this webinar?
Yes. Ken Blanchard, I actually went to the Ken Blanchard School of Leadership at Grand Canyon University, where I received my master's in leadership. And so I was immersed in Ken Blanchard and everything Ken Blanchard, which is, he is just an awesome, he has an awesome delivery of what true leadership really means. And so that's one of the resources that I gave on there, was Leading at a Higher Level. It's a great book that talks about what I talked about today. So that is one really, really great resource book that he wrote. I think that's, pretty pretty much, did they want to know about the other? I know there's other resources too that I gave. One of my favorite people is Margaret Heffernan, who talks about leadership. And I put a link to one of her TED Talks. I would love to have shown it to you today, but it's a little lengthy. But there's a link to it, and I encourage everyone to look at that because it talks about perspective and how conflict can sometimes we think is one thing, but it's actually when we take and we do perception checking, then we see that there's more involved. So 2 great resources there, definitely.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. The next question that came through says, Derek, what do you think of email or text versus face-to-face communication during conflict resolution?
Oh, that is a good question. That is something that, you know, we're having to change right in the middle of. Of course, we'd all love to have face-to-face. I mean, I'm a people person. So in this new era we're in of, you know, just email and different things, I think it's important that if we can have a face-to-face on camera type of resolution, that would be better than just, you know, without them seeing what the inflections, the response, you know, how you're responding to what they're saying. I think that's very, very important because otherwise it becomes very sterile and there's really nothing in it. But in this time that, you know, we can't be, you know, in front of people, at least we do have this mode of communication where we can then see the person and we can talk through things. And I think it's important that we listen very, very well, that we become really, really good listeners. Because in listening, number one, it shows a lot of respect to the other person and what they're trying to communicate. And requesting clarification, because sometimes you can then say back to them, so did you mean this? Or is this what you're saying? But if we're really good active listeners and we actually give back some of what they're saying in response to them, it really shows that we are listening and that we are hearing exactly where their issues lie. So that is an awesome question. It really is, because we've had to change very quickly, and it's just something that we've got to get used to. So.
Okay. Are there ways to practice not taking conflict personally?
Oh, yes.
Got some good questions coming through for you.
I know. There are ways. You know, what I always say, it's something that I have to just deactivate within myself. And literally, when I was teaching, I literally did this sometimes. Just to realize and recognize, turn it off. And then we have to understand that the words that people are saying, they're usually the things that they're upset about. It's usually not about us. We're the ones that are the closest to the situation. And so a lot of times, and I'm not saying all the time, but most of the time, it's not about us. That's what I saw with students, with people that I've worked with when I was in the military, different things. It wasn't about me, but I was the one that they came to for a solution. So in whatever they're saying, I just have to deactivate that personal thing that says, you know what, there's more to this than just me. A lot of times there are certain things that set people up to behave certain ways. There's antecedent behavior consequence chain that that's my psychology background. But anyways, there's antecedents, things that happen before you see the behavior that you know not of sometimes. And so you have to become a detective and just kind of see, hey, maybe there's something else that's driving this that I'm not seeing. So I can't take it personally. I need to listen to them, hear them out, and then offer whatever solutions or, you know, coach them through whatever it is that you need to do. But yeah, you just have to, it comes by practice. It really does. And it comes by just deactivating that personal thing in me that says, oh, they're directing this at me. No, that's not it. I'm here as a sounding board. And sometimes I need to just absorb what they're saying and understand it and say, okay, let's look for a solution together because I want us to move past this.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. What is your suggestion for dealing with a person who seems to show conflict every day?
Wow. So there's something that they're unhappy with naturally. And so you're going to have to do the work and do the detective work to see exactly what it is that's driving that behavior. There's always something behind it. Just as I said before, there's something that's driving that person to be, constantly the way that they are. And maybe there's something that in me as a leader that maybe I need to change. So maybe stepping in their shoes, getting that perspective, and seeing exactly what they're feeling will help the situation. It'll at least help you as a leader to see where they're coming from. I think that's the most important thing, because otherwise it will just continue to go on, and you'll find yourself, like I said earlier, just polarizing both you and this person and not coming to a solution, but knowing that every day you do have to come and work together. So it's just going to take, and sometimes you need to get a third party in there that maybe can mediate between what's going on if you can't work it out with you and that person. That's just my suggestion. It's going to take some detective work to see exactly what's going on.
Okay. As a new leader, I fear being too passive. Have you been able to see leaders be more confident in their confrontation abilities? And if so, do you have any resources for those leaders?
Yes, in their confrontation abilities, yes, I have seen them become more confident. There's a book by David Augsburger that I put as one of the resources, Caring Enough to Confront. Even my wife read it, and who was having some issues at her job, and it really helped her significantly. So that's a resource for you as a new leader. And yes, as you put things into practice, I wouldn't say you don't worry about being too passive. I think what really helps is being yourself. That's me. I'm just myself. And I lead people from where I know their strengths are, and I want to bring out their strengths. And so you just be who you are. I always say, be fabulous you, and just lead them as you see fit to lead them. And be that person that encourages them, that has their back, as someone said earlier, that they know that you're in their corner. I think that's the most important thing, having someone's back, knowing that they will fight, that you as a leader will fight for them, that you'll go to bat for them. That means the world to people. It really does. So be yourself. And congratulations as being a new leader, and just gain all the knowledge that you can through different resources, different things, the resources that I gave, different resources that are out there for leaders. So yes, they will change.
Wonderful. How do you help, or what do you say to an employee or group of employees to lessen their stress so they'll actually listen to leadership?
To lessen their stress. Well, there's some different things that you can do. Maybe doing something together as a group that's maybe outside of work, having lunch together, doing something like that. I know that right now, it's kind of, difficult maybe to do that, but any kind of activity maybe that you can do together as a group, that will be something that will be an icebreaker that would break the ice, so that then they will understand sometimes the understanding of leadership, people look at leadership as so authoritarian that it's just like leaders are just there to knock me over my head and make sure that I'm just, doing what I need to do. But if they can see leadership in a way that humanizes the leader and realize that leaders have their own set of fears and, responsibilities and different things like that, it humanizes us as leaders. And then people feel more comfortable. Not that they're going to run all over us, but just humanizing us and realizing one of the biggest things that I can say when I was in education, I still live in the neighborhood where I taught for 20 years. And so I've seen my students grow up. They're adults. They have their own kids going to school where I used to teach around the corner. And so it has humanized me because they saw me doing regular things in the community, like cutting my grass or being at the supermarket. So the more that we can just erase the mystery of leadership and be more human towards people, I think that really will help people be more comfortable with leadership and they'll be more comfortable to come to us, to talk to us, to tell us what they're struggling with, in the job, different things like that. It humanizes us. So, and it just levels the playing field. So I think that's one of the things that you can do.
Great, thank you so much for that. This next question says, how do I resolve fractions in the department? 2 different cliques, lots of gossiping.
Oh, wow. Well, I guess, the source of the gossip, whatever the gossip is, that's kind of really, it can be petty stuff, but it's real. So if there's some friction and factions going on, 2 departments, maybe there's something that you can do to bring the departments together so that they can see that, hey, you know what, we're all working towards the same goal. Once you focus on the goal that they're all working towards, then they can see similarities and hopefully go like this, where they end up coming together. So maybe there's something that you can do as a leader to bring the 2 together. I'm not sure what that would be, but if there's something that you can think of, it will lessen then the voices that are saying things, because gossip is just stuff that people, sometimes it can be true stuff, it can be stuff that people perceive, because you're dealing with perceptions again. And then if you bring the 2 groups together, though, in some sort of way, those perceptions will change because they'll begin to see each other. And it's all about human dignity and respect. It really is. It's about really understanding that people need to respect each other. They need to respect their differences. They need to respect their viewpoints, their perceptions of certain things. And once that happens, you can start beginning to see things maybe change a little bit, and then institute some more things so that people can then come together. But keeping the 2 apart, I think that's what's going to cause things to continue and to perpetuate. So find a way to bring everyone together and just lay the skunk on the table sometimes too, and saying, hey, we're all working towards the same goal here. We don't have time to be, separated and have division here. We've all got to work together. So you as a leader have the power to do that. We have the power to quell a lot of gossip and things that are going on, especially when we know the gossip and different things is not true. And even if it is true, then we need to respect people's privacy and different things like that if it gets into certain things. So, and then I would also, if it's really bad, then go to HR. Go to your HR folks and find out some things that you can do in order to quell those things. Because people need to realize, hey, we're here to do a job. We're here to work together. We're here, as our work family, and we don't have time for gossip and stuff like that. It's just not part of what needs to be in the workplace.
Okay. This next question, do you have any tips for future leaders? I think you've provided quite a few during this presentation, but any specific any specific takeaways that you can provide?
I will say, as someone way back when I was just an airman and in the Air Force, and wanting to progress in different things, do all you can to learn about good leadership. Glean things from leaders that really encourage people. I wanted people around me that encouraged me and that I saw were encouraging others. And so you want to be around those type of leaders. So you want to get yourself different, books, different things, and just glean as much as you can from those good leaders, and seeing there's so many different leaders that I can look to. You can look historically at different leaders and as far as leadership. You can look now as far as leaders that are in the world that are making great strides to bring people together and to lead people in a way that humanizes people and treats them with respect and with dignity and wants to pull out the very best in people. Those are the types of things. That's the type of leader that I hope that you will end up becoming, is a leader that really sees people's worth, that empowers them to be everything that they can be, everything. And so that means giving them a step stool to move into other areas, different things. Like I said, I won't always be here. They won't always be where they are, but I can provide tools and different things necessary. I can coach them so that then they can move into those places. That was one thing that I did a few years back. We didn't have a formalized leadership plan within our organization. So I took all the managers and I said, hey, we're going to take this book and we're going to go through it, 101 different ways of leadership by John Maxwell. I can't remember the exact title. And we went through the book, and we did a chapter or a couple of chapters a week, and then we would discuss it. And we would discuss certain things that they were having issues with and certain things that they were having success with. So John Maxwell is a good also resource for leadership. Very, very good books that he has on leadership. So yes, those are the things. Surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with good material. And before you know it, like I said, leadership does not start on the stage. It does not. It starts in the menial tasks of every day, of just doing things and being consistent in your life, and just knowing that it's a process. It's a process.
Thank you, Derek. And we have time for one more question. How can we as leaders and as people in general help coworkers respect each other?
Model it. That's the biggest way. Modeling respect. That was the way that I taught students. It was modeling it, showing it every day, giving them praise, telling them how much I appreciated them. If we model it as leaders, then it's going to catch like fire. It's like dry brush. You light a match to it, it's just going to poof. It's going to run like wildfire. So if you model it, anything that we want to see as leaders, if we want to see something change, it's up to us to model that change. And so that's going to be the most effective way to bring any kind of change or anything like that for those that you have the stewardship of leading. I always say I have the stewardship to lead people. It is a privilege and an honor for me to lead anyone. And so it's up to me to make sure that I have everything that I need as a leader to give them everything they need in their tool belts so that then they can move on as great leaders as well.
All right, very good. And I just want to remind everyone that there are some great resources for you on the right-hand side of your screen, some books that you can check out if you're looking to learn more about leadership style, leadership skills. Certainly check out John Maxwell as well. And Derek, I can add his book that you referenced to that resources tool after this webinar,
okay, awesome.
so that that'll be available for anyone who views this on demand. So we'll certainly add that. I want to thank you, Derek, for providing the current and future leaders of this industry with, I think, a healthy and honest dose of both reality and encouragement. It's been a sincere pleasure. And I want to make sure that everyone who's still tuned in takes advantage of those resources. In about an hour, you will all receive an email that'll have a link to this session on demand, along with a link to access the survey to get your CE certificate. You'll also notice on the bottom of your screen, there's a little CE icon. You can certainly click on that to access the survey right away as well. Please watch this session again, reference it, share it with your colleagues. You can also pay attention and share all of the Censis webinars in this series with the colleagues around you and access them at any time on demand. There is a pink call to action icon on the bottom right that you can click on and register for the next webinar in this series as well. On behalf of Beyond Clean, and in partnership with Censis Technologies, we thank you for joining us today. And as always, we encourage you to keep fighting dirty. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.